Right then, Tusky porridge or rhubarb porridge. Tusky is a West Yorkshire dialect word for rhubarb, which I grew up with, so that's why I've called it Tusky porridge, but you can call it what you like. And there are two of the usual ingredients, which is rolled oats and milk to a 2-to-1 ratio. That's kind of normal, that's what most people make the porridge to, but if you've got your own recipe, go for that. And the ones we're interested in today are the 4 new ones. We've got rhubarb here, and I've done different size stems from the allotment just to illustrate that you can make this porridge recipe with either slender or thick stems, depending whether you want smooth or chunky porridge. In winter you'll only get slender stems like this from forced rhubarb anyway, and they tend to melt into the porridge. But my preference is big chunks of rhubarb in my porridge, like little taste bombs. So we've got that, the black treacle, wildflower honey, local stuff, mine in fact, and ginger powder. Now the only one you've got to be careful with is the black treacle. You only want a tiny amount of that in. It does make a difference to the flavour, but if you put too much in, it'll just make your porridge a bit licorice flavoured, which isn't a good taste first thing in the morning. So tiny amount of that. And the ginger powder, you can see that one's come with little holes on top, which is great because I use 7 shakes of that per person in my porridge. Now when you get a container that hasn't got little holes in, you just use a tiny tip of a teaspoon. It's according to your own preference anyway. And that's the great thing about this recipe, is there's no precise measurements. It's really quick, you can just chuck stuff in as you like. I would suggest you stick to my basic recipe for your first attempt, but after that you can put more ginger in, more rhubarb, or less of anything you want. So the only other thing we need is a pan, and for this a non-stick pan's good because we're going to fry the rhubarb in the honey and treacle to start with. You can use an ordinary pan, but obviously non-stick's a bit more convenient and easy to clean after. So there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4 ingredients, plus your rolled oats and milk. Right, this is what you do. Let's get started. All you need is a handful of rhubarb. Remember I said it didn't need precise measurements? Well, a handful is whatever your handful is. So that's enough for me. And I've done fairly large chunks, which hopefully will stay together, will not dissolve into the rhubarb and give me little taste explosions in the rhubarb. But I've also done a couple of small chunks as well from a slender one, and they'll probably dissolve. And the next thing you need is, remember this is per person, 2 teaspoonfuls of honey, I'll just put that in there to make sure I get it all. No, what? I'll lick the spoon. Oh, that's lovely. And then 7 shakes of this I do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, 7. And one of them wasn't very good, so I'll do another. That's the ginger powder. And then the one we have to be careful with, the black treacle, and all I do is just put a tiny bit on the end of the spoon. So you just dip the spoon in, and then that goes in there. And all we have to do now is cook that as it is. Okay, I've turned the gas on and it should start cooking. You don't need to add any water, because what will happen first of all is the honey will give up its liquid. Honey is about 20% moisture anyway, so the rhubarb will start cooking in that moisture, and then the rhubarb will give up its juices and it will continue to cook in the mixture of all the flavours in a syrup. It's starting to go now. When you cook it quite hard in these syrups, it's possibly a bit too hard, and you cook it until the rhubarb goes soft. And the way that you tell it's gone soft is you just tap it or push on it and you can see that's, or you can hear and feel rather, that's hard. And we're going to cook it till it goes soft, and then you've got a decision point. Just as it goes soft, if you want chunks in your rhubarb, then you put in your milk and your porridge oats. If not, you just leave it for another 30 seconds or so, and the chunks will go soft. Now, this isn't just dependent on whether you've got big chunks or small chunks, it's also dependent on the variety. When I was young, we lived near rhubarb fields, and the rhubarb in those fields was giant rhubarb, maybe 3-4 foot high, a metre high, and it was huge stems, and they were destined for canning, for going into tins, and they could be cooked apparently for ages and they wouldn't lose the shape or form. And it's the same with a few other varieties of rhubarb, they keep the form better. You can see there the little pieces have just gone soft, but the big ones are still hard. So those little pieces will just blend into the porridge and make rhubarb flavoured porridge, whereas the big ones are going to stay. Now they're just starting to go a little bit soft now. That's all we needed. What was that, a minute or two cooking, less. Just give it a bit longer. A couple of them still a bit. Right, they're just starting to give now. Really nice, all cooking their own syrup. All blending of flavours. And then we just add the milk and the rolled oats in the normal way. And all those lovely flavours will blend with the milk. And make a lovely rhubarb flavoured porridge. So what we do now is just keep stirring this occasionally and cook it in the normal way and wait for the porridge to thicken. So you are now watching a video of porridge thickening. I know how to keep an audience riveted to the seat. So what I'll do is I'll come back to this when it's a little bit thicker, then you can see the end result. Oh, by the way, just before I go, you can see that's quite a pale in colour. But if you use really red rhubarb and let it cook, you can see the redness is still in the pieces there. You'll get a pinker or even a beige colour, which I think is really nice. But it's all dependent on the variety you use and the time of year you get your rhubarb. If you get forced rhubarb in winter, it will tend to be very much redder and cause a pinker porridge. The taste isn't affected. You can get completely green rhubarbs, but we tend to associate red with being ripe, so we go for redder things. But green rhubarb's just as tasty, so don't let that put you off if the rhubarb's green at the vegetable shop or the market. But the colour will change according to the redness in the rhubarb. So we'll come back to this in a little while. Right, we're getting there now. I don't know how you like your porridge, but I kind of like it a bit thicker than that, but not too thick. If you use the ratio 2:1, you tend to end up with something that's edible. I have fooled myself that I didn't need to measure those ingredients before and just chucked them in a pan, and I end up with 3 pans full of porridge, or porridge you can cook with a bread knife. So the 2:1 ratio is good, and it's just about getting there. And you can see there some of the rhubarb's melted in, and these pieces of rhubarb perfectly cooked now. Just squash that against the side, see how soft it is. It's perfectly cooked, soaked in honey and ginger, and we're just about ready there. So that's Tusky porridge, and it only takes a few extra minutes to cook the extra ingredients before you add your rolled oats and porridge. Your rolled oats and milk. There we go.